Well, we give you fair warning about this program. I think it's safe to say, Shannon, that most of the people that we have as guests on this program, we consider friends.
Correct.
Actually,
but I think Bob and Friends could be a name. Bob and Friends.
I don't think I want to go down quite that road. Thank you very much.
How about Bob and Friend? Or is that pushing it?
Well, even that is pushing it.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah.
Having said that, there are some people that we consider friends that we don't know very well, and there are others who are genuine friends and who we rely on from time to time to help us out. And we see them socially, at least in my case. I know you do more social stuff than I do, but Bob Nicholson is one of those people. Mm-hmm. Our commonality of interest is not just in hockey, it is in golf and a whole variety of other things.
And taking your money,
which he has done on more than one occasion as a noted sandbagger. I won't call him a cheater.
No, he's not a cheater. He doesn't cheat.
Well, I've never caught him cheating. I mean, I haven't caught him fixing a lie or moving his ball or dropping.
Are you suggesting
dropping
golfers
a lost
do that?
ball down his pant leg and saying, "Oh, I found it." I've never suspected he does that. Although he is as annoying as crap to play with, because he won't shut up and he's on you all the time.
He was that type of hockey player too, just so you know.
I'm not at all. I am not the least surprised.
I met this guy. I watched this guy play junior tier 2 hockey for 2 or 3 years in the Okanagan Valley. And this guy was that 5'7" little chippy guy, nattering all over the ice.
He still does,
moving the puck properly to the wingers, winning the faceoffs. If you were the coach of the team he was playing on, you were putting him on for the last faceoff to win the draw because you knew he would fight for his life to get that puck back to the point. And he plays golf the same way.
You ain't kidding, pal.
Yeah.
But he is a true friend. And he is a person of a significant influence in the sport of hockey, not just in the National Hockey League, but internationally. The former head of Hockey Canada.
Yeah.
For a long, excuse me, John.
You okay?
I'm okay.
Okay.
For a long period of time. And now the chairman of the Edmonton Oilers. Our conversation today,
I'd love it to be about the Oilers.
I'm sorry?
I said I would like it to be about the Oilers.
Well, hopefully we'll get to that at least a little bit. But there was news yesterday from the International Ice Hockey Federation as they held a meeting and made some decisions and announcements with regard to the international crisis taking place in Ukraine with respect to the future of some of Russia's hockey participation. We're going to discuss that and what else can or might be done, and hopefully a little bit about the Oilers as well. Bob Nicholson will join us after these messages. And we are back. Bob McCown, John Shannon with you on the podcast and radio program on Sirius XM 167. Usually when we have our next guest on, there is plenty of joking and frivolity, and there may be some of that to come, but we are in a different time right now, as we all spend probably a considerable amount of time each day watching the events unfolding in Ukraine. Bob Nicholson, the president of the Edmonton Oilers, is with us, and also a vice president for North America for the IIHF. And you guys had a meeting yesterday, Nick. Tell us what you resolved to do.
Yeah, Bob, it was a meeting. We'd had a lot of discussions and then a formal meeting with the executive yesterday to look at the situation in the Ukraine. And, over the weekend, as we had one-on-one discussions, we all saw what was happening to the Ukraine. So when we got the executive together yesterday, we had to look at what type of what we would do, first of all, to try to help Ukraine, but also what we would do with Belarus and Russia in the situation of them attacking the Ukraine. And we got to this decision fairly quickly. I think 2 or 3 key points that we made were any of the championships that are upcoming, if Russia or Belarus are in them, we're looking at replacing them with another country. And we have to do that quickly because there are some championships, within the next month. And also the biggest one is the Men's World Championship in Finland. And Finland gets a little more complicated even than just removing Russia from that championship. The arena that the championship was going to be played in Helsinki is owned by the Russians. The Jokerit team from the KHL had pulled out on the weekend from the KHL, and a decision was made yesterday that we will remove that championship from that arena and go into another arena in Helsinki. So it'll be in Helsinki and in Tampere, that World Championship. And then looking forward, we have a championship in Russia, the World Juniors, next Christmas, and we'll be looking for a new host at that time. So we made those statements yesterday in a press release after the meeting, and there's still a lot of other things we have to look at, and we'll continue to have this discussion. We have a meeting in Zurich in March. We're having to look at linesmen and other people participating from Belarus and Russia in international hockey, and we'll be making those decisions as quickly as we can.
Let me jump in here quickly, John, and then I'll let you go. Was there representation, or is there representation from either Russia or Belarus on the executive committee for the IIHF?
Very, very good question, Bob. Yeah, Pavel Bure is on the executive committee for Russia, and we asked him to not attend this meeting because of conflict of interest. It was a tough decision to make, but we thought it was an appropriate one not to have Pavel on there as we discussed the Ukraine-Russia situation.
Bob, can those decisions be changed? In other words, if for some miracle in the next 2 weeks the Russians retreat and damages are, and there's reciprocity on damages, can the Russians and the Belarusians participate? And can you change your mind?
One of the key things that we put in that statement, you got to read the small print there, John, is once all the conflicts are resolved. So I'm not sure what all the conflicts are. So, if it all stopped tomorrow, there's still a lot of conflicts, and those would all have to be looked at. So there's no timeline on this, but hopefully the war does stop and we can get through all the conflicts and have them back. But that's going to take some time.
The other thing is that there has been the outcry from the West has been amazing and very supportive of Ukraine. Where do you think the role of sport is in all of this?
That's a good one, because you always say that sports should try to, be outside of it. But we just thought that because of this situation, we had to make these steps today. We really, first of all, want to make sure the participants of the other countries are safe that are participating. And then also, is it safe to have the Russian players there, in this situation that's going on? So we looked at the safety of the players, but really we went to the bigger picture of, what was the attack on Ukraine at this time. And so many countries with the IIHF bordering Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah, I guess the other side of that is that, and you have been around Mr. Putin at World Championships and given medals out with him. If I'm not correct, he loves sports. He thinks this is an important part of the image of his country. So, do you think not just your federation, but the IOC, FIFA, F1, there are almost every sports federation has come and supported Ukraine? Do you think it has any impact, honestly?
I would love to say it does, but I'm not sure. I think this is much bigger. I don't like saying that, but hey, that's just my personal opinion, John, from things on TV. This looks way bigger in sport, and there doesn't seem to be any indication, with all the sport federations doing what they've done, over the last 48 hours, that there's been any impact at all.
I know that all of us have kept an eye on channels like CNN to keep abreast of what's going on over there. One of the intriguing things I saw yesterday from a reporter embedded in Russia was that, for the most part, the population there has no knowledge of what's going on in the Ukraine. Not just the motives of the Russians and their aggression, but they don't even know that there's a conflict happening. The media is so tightly controlled now by Mr. Putin. However, as federations and organizations like yours, the IIHF, start to cancel events and take sporting events away, inevitably, the Russian public, who may know nothing about what's going on outside their borders, will suddenly go, well, hey, how come this is happening? How come our soccer teams aren't playing? How come our hockey teams aren't playing? How come we're not in this championship or that championship? I'd have to think that in some way that would be internally impactful in Russia. Don't you think, Bob?
Yeah, that's a real good point, Bob. And, it's when you look at the IIHF, we can look at all the championships, but, just with the Joker team out of Finland, like the KHL has big profile in Russia. And for Yuri Curry's the general manager of that team, and them pulling out of the KHL, that's a huge signal right inside. And, as the big events aren't happening, it's another message to the people. It's sad that they don't know what's going on. And again, that's why you have to start all these sanctions, so that they're getting those type of messages and cutting a lot of the luxury things off that they do day to day.
We just finished the Beijing Olympics, and we saw other issues in other sports with Russian athletes. How important and what role do the Russians play in the International Ice Hockey Federation?
Russia's been a huge part of international ice hockey. One of the things that's coming up, John, that's going to be really sad, the 50th anniversary of the 72 series.
Right.
And I know there was a ton of activity starting to percolate to do in Canada, and maybe even more in Russia. And, those types of things with this going on that aren't going to happen. So we're going to miss a key moment again in the history of sport. But, the Canada-Russia series has been so big, and, they're always a dominant player. World Juniors, everyone still wants to see a Canada-Russia game. So they have been important, but I'm really pleased with Luke Tardif and his leadership as the president. He hasn't had a fun ride here.
No.
With this and COVID, the Olympics over the since he's taken over for 6 months, and he was held strong and did a good job leading us through this process.
I thought when you started to talk about it, I thought you were. I was putting two and two together and thinking about World Cup, but one would always obviously assume that this would have a huge impact on the World Cup of hockey if it occurs in 2024 as well. Correct?
Yeah, that's something that the NHL, NHLP, and IIHF were just going to start to talk about. I sure hope that we're not still in this at that time, but hopefully with these strong messages, that when a World Cup comes around in 2024, that things are back to normal. But what is back to normal going to be?
So there's a world. This includes World Women's in the summertime. This includes the World Juniors that are supposed to occur in Alberta. Is that correct?
Yes, it does. Yes, all of those. And so I think the other key there, John, is how do we bring those other teams up? And for men's worlds, it's a real tricky one, because we have the divisional play happening in April here. and they end 5 days before the Men's World Championship. So I don't think we can wait till those tournaments are over. So the competition committee is going to be looking at over the next week or so and make recommendations, because each division and men's and women's is going to have to be looked at separately. And so how do you make those changes?
So when you say that, you're talking about that second tier of countries, and who would that be?
Yeah, so when you look at those countries at the men's worlds, there's always teams coming up and teams coming down. So that those change all the time from Italy to
Okay. So that's the Hungaries of the world.
Yeah, who will come up in replacing the Russian team? Belarus has been in that stage that they come up and down at various times.
With Bob Nicholson, the head of the Edmonton Oilers and the vice president for North America for the IIHF, with us today. Did you consider the possibility with regard to international championships of simply leaving the Russians theoretically in, but not allowing them to play and forcing them to default all games? Was that an option that was considered?
Are you saying, just for clarification there, Bob, you're saying that they would say they're there, but they couldn't play the games?
No, they wouldn't be there. They would simply default. In other words, then you would not have to replace them with another country.
How do you do that with a pool? How do you do that with pools, Bob?
Well,
yeah, the biggest thing on that, Bob, men's worlds, again, I'll go to that because that's the one right in front of us. We have TV contracts, 16 teams. We have all those slots that are there. And we just think it's an opportunity for these other countries to come up and play in those.
Sure.
We talked about it, but really we didn't talk very long. We thought it was right to move other teams in.
And if you don't want to say anything, I understand, but you have a great deal of friends in Russia. You have built bridges in Russia. I think of Slava Fetisov and Trechak amongst those. Have you had a chance to have any dialogue with those guys over the last 3 or 4 days about what the federation has to do and where this goes for hockey?
No, I haven't, John, and I've thought about reaching out there. I just haven't done it because of I didn't want to put them in a situation that was uncomfortable for them. And I have had communication with the Ukraine people that I was over there 3 years running a tournament. But, Trechak is one, I consider him a real good friend. And, we talked last night about all the players in the KHL, Canadian players, and wanting to get back. And now to get back with, all the air travel cut off, there's a lot of things that have to be looked at for the safety of good friends in Russia, but also players in that are playing in the KHL that are not Russian.
Do you actually, as an explanation, does the federation have a role in those players playing over there? Are they sanctioned by the IIHF to play in the KHL?
The KHL is an interesting situation where, there is relationships, but there's no formal jurisdiction.
Right.
The NHL doesn't have any jurisdiction there, but they do respect each other's contracts. So, our chat at the end was, hey, how do we try to help those players? But they have contracts too, and dollars that are a big part of the reason that they're over there. So it's a complicated. Could they get out and not get paid? Maybe, but how do you get out with all the airspace is now sort of cut off now?
Right.
Europe and even into Canada, like they can't fly back into Canada.
I don't want to put you on the spot with this question because I know it is not your level of responsibility. But among the things that we have discussed on this program over the last few days is the potential for the 60 or so Russian players in the National Hockey League, the possibility that they may be suspended, or what should we do with them? They are not responsible directly for what has happened. That is clear. Some of them have been supporters of Mr. Putin. Others, I presume, have not. Some live in North America now and don't go back to Russia on any kind of regular basis, at least. But do you have an opinion on what, if anything, the National Hockey League can or should do in that regard?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go into that area, Bob. You know, that's something that Gary Bettman and Bill Daly will look at. Those players are under contract, and you know, they're probably concerned about family members back there in Russia. So it's a delicate one, and certainly one that I haven't had any discussions and wouldn't want to really tread into that area at this time.
Actually, I don't know if you saw that yesterday. Dan Milstein, who's a high-profile agent out of Detroit, who's a Russian, was talking about he was very concerned about security of his Russian clients in the NHL. Can you see that? Do you see that as an issue?
Well, I think you have to look at all of that, John. You know, everything surrounding the Russian people that are outside and inside, and non-Russian people inside Russia. I think all of those things, you know, at a much higher level than hockey has to be looking at. And, you know, from the Canadian government, U.S. government, all the governments over in Europe have to be thinking about that type of thing as they put on these sanctions.
I did not see the beginning of the Leafs Washington game last night. I assume you did, John.
No, I didn't actually.
Oh,
watching another game.
Well, I did watch a good portion of it, and there was no noticeable reaction to Ovechkin on the ice. Now, mind you, this is his hometown. These are his hometown fans. But his response when asked about this, he is known to be a supporter of Putin, and his reaction to the war was tepid at best. I think we would all agree. Would you guys expect Ovechkin to be booed as his team goes on the road and starts playing games in other arenas?
That's it.
You know, again, I don't think so. But I'm not sure what happens in arenas with, you know, there's a lot of Russian players on teams that have really endeared themselves to the city, and I think Ovechkin's done that in Washington. And you know, his comments, he has family members in Russia. It's a very tough and delicate situation to put a person in.
Bob, my answer to you is I don't think that. I think most fans do separate sports from politics and from this type of thing, and you know, the one thing that Alex Ovechkin did say, it was no more war, which is exactly what the tennis player wrote on the camera the day it started. Other Russian athletes outside of Russia did say they were disappointed. They didn't want war. There's a couple of oligarchs now that have come out and said that they don't want war. So there, you know, I think in his mind, and I'm not speaking for him at all, but in his mind, he went to a line that he could go to and felt he couldn't go any farther, because that's the one part. And maybe Nick, you can talk about this. We don't understand their culture as much as we want to understand their culture. We don't understand it. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's a real fair comment. You know, and over the years, I tried to get to know them better to understand their culture, but their culture is different, much different than ours. And it's tough to get that clear dialogue because the cultures are different, the values are different, and we're seeing some of that now. And I like your comment there, John, about, you know, stop the war. I think that's a powerful statement for those people with, you know, that are living over here that have family members back there. As you said, Bob, you know, most of the people over there don't know what's going on, and that's it's sad and it's scary at the same time.
Well, the conflict, and I'm not trying to be controversial here by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, obviously, we're thinking about a lot of things during these dreadful times. And of course, I support the IIHF's decisions that they've made. But who is most impacted by those decisions? Well, the hockey players. Does Putin really care about it? I think he's got other things on his mind. I think by your own acknowledgement, he has, the sanctions that have been placed on that country will affect the people much more than they will affect Mr. Putin. And I don't think he's likely to back out of what he has started as a result of them. And quite frankly, and with no disrespect intended, while the IIHF's decisions were the right decisions and honorable decisions, they're going to have negligible impact to Mr. Putin. But the people who will be impacted by this are the players themselves. And I don't know what the right answer here is. And that which brings me back to the 60 or so players in the National Hockey League. It takes me to the soccer players who now face the prospect of not making it to the World Cup. I think of the tennis players and the reaction on the courts as they continue to play, or should they be allowed to play? I mean, the answers to all these questions are not easy. They appear to be simplistic and straightforward, but in essence, I know that you're not trying to punish an individual hockey player in Russia. You're trying to punish the country. And unfortunately, I think the country is otherwise committed and occupied, and probably it'll be like a fly on an elephant. Any thoughts?
Can't disagree with anything that you said there, Bob, but I still think that anything that you can do to help the Ukrainian people, you try to do. And I think that, and that's what we did with the IIHF. That's what they're going to try to do with the other sanctions. John, with the oligarchs starting to say there shouldn't be war, that's another level around Putin. And you want to tighten things around Putin so that everyone in that country understands what he's done. And that message has to come in so many different ways, in so many different ways back in to the directed at Putin, but certainly so all the people in Russia understand that this is tragic, what their leader's doing, and hopefully something can be done within the country as well as outside the country.
Well, I'm sympathetic to that point of view, but unfortunately, I'm not sure it's going to work. And part of the problem is, and there are three guys who've been in sports all their lives discussing politics from across an ocean. Many will find ludicrous, but I think we all have personal opinions of this kind of stuff, or on this kind of stuff.
I don't think the Federation had any choice, though, Bob.
Oh, I don't think they did either, John. I'm not suggesting that for a second.
Yeah,
I'm only trying to point out that the sanctions that have been implemented in Russia that have caused the ruble to fall 50%, more than 50% of its value, where interest rates have doubled to 20%, where banks do not have the ability to trade internationally, and on and on and on and on. And what has happened since on the battlefield? The Russians have merely escalated. There is now a 40-mile long train of military equipment and personnel about to embark a land in Kyiv. It's very frustrating, and there are no absolute answers to any.
I mean, listen. Let's face it. The only way that, short of war, the only way to punish the Russians is to isolate them. You have to isolate them, and
under the circumstances, you're right. But I think it's important to point out that has had very little influence on the Russians. I mean, they
take a long time, Bob.
They attacked a government building this last night.
Yeah.
I think 10 people reported dead in that government building. So their agenda of staying away from the inner cities in terms of bombing, and their alleged desire to protect the general population and only go after key military placements is ending. This is becoming a full-scale war. And it's tragic, if nothing else. We want to brighten things up a little bit and focus a little bit on the National Hockey League in the last few weeks, I guess it is, of the season ahead, and specifically with your Edmonton Oilers. We'll do that after the break. We'll be back after these messages. McCowan and Shannon, Bob Nicholson is with us. He is, of course, the head of the Edmonton Oilers, the VP for North America for the IIHF. I don't know how to describe the season that your team has had other than up and down, but up and down in very dramatic ways and extended ways. You recall seeing a team that has had these runs of success and runs of failure that have been as prolonged as Edmonton has had?
Yeah, we've really been on a roller coaster ride here, Bob. You know, we started so well, and then we went on, that long losing streak. And hey, everyone was in the same situation. We had a ton of injuries. We had, COVID hit us hard. We're back into the injury situation now. Hopefully, we're going to get playing better. But we just weren't consistent, and a lot of people pointed to different positions on our team. It was the whole group, and when you do that, you have to look at making changes. We've made some changes, and Jay Woodcroft has really got this team playing well. We've played 3 games here on this road trip, and we've won 1, and I thought we played much better in the 2 games that we lost. Thought we played very well in Tampa and very well in Carolina. If we keep playing this way, I feel very confident that this team's going to will get back into the playoffs and hopefully do some damage there. But we have to continue to play consistent and with the full team. And Jay Woodcroft's got everyone on our team engaged, which is has been really, really positive.
You work in a hockey crazed town, to say the least. How difficult was the pressure, and then how difficult was it to remove Dave Tippett?
Well, first of all, Dave Tippett is a very good person. He's a very good coach, but it was time to make a change. The team was spiraling, and when you do that, when you have as much talent in our team as we think we have, you have to make some change. And so the coaching change was one that Ken Holland hasn't done this very often in his career at all. He's patient, but patience ran out.
And when you talk about what Jay has done, first of all, Jay looks like he's about 12 behind the bench, and that's kind of scary. He's 45 years old, but he looks 12. What has he done that Tippett couldn't do in instilling something in the players? Is it as simple as system, or is the system that much different?
I think the detail to system. I think Dave Manson's been a huge part of this. How we've played defensively, how we've tried to stand up on the blue line. I think we've done a good job. The real key is they've gone to 7 and 11, John. We've gone to 7 defensemen with 11 forwards. That gives Connor and Leon a little more time to spot them in. And Dave has done a great job of, got a lot of young kids back in the defense and putting them in the right positions to be successful. But I think even more than that, Jay has really engaged the whole roster. McLeod has really taken off for us, which is to see. Derek Ryan, he looks he looks like a 40-goal scorer, and that's just giving them more ice time, giving them more opportunity, and we're seeing that throughout our lineup, which is very positive. And Leon and Connor are playing very well.
The 900-pound elephant is your goaltending. I don't think anybody would question Mikko Koskinen these days, particularly after the game in Florida. But how concerned are you about Mike Smith?
You know what? Mike played well the other night, and Mike's a veteran guy. Everyone talks about his age. He hasn't played a lot, so trying to get him back in a rhythm here. He plays like he did in Carolina, and we'll be fine there. But it's something we're looking at. And Mikko goes here tonight, and then see what happens here. Mikko is showing that if you don't overwork him, he can play in this league and do very well. He's just showing that if you have to run him out 5, 6, 7 games in a row, he's not as strong. So we have to make sure that we protect Miko in that situation, and hope Mike gets his game around. He's a competitive guy. Had a great game the last one. We're hoping for that the next time he can.
Every time I talk to people in your organization, all they do is rave about Mike Smith in the room. Can you explain that? I mean, you can't make saves in the room, but what difference can a guy like Mike Smith make for your team off the ice?
I think it's real important what Mike does in the room. You know, he's a veteran guy. He's been around the league so much. You know, that's why it's going to be great. Duncan Keith flew into Philly. Game time decision whether he'll play tonight. We need some of those veteran players, and Mike's been there for a few years, and you know he's been a huge voice and a good voice for the young players, and that's why you want Mike playing well. If Mike's playing well, that voice becomes strong, much stronger. But you know, our other leadership group is really starting to grow. You know, the Darnell, Leon, Connor. It's getting much better, but it's been helped by Mike Smith in the past.
Yeah, actually, you talked about Duncan Keith. He may not play in Philadelphia, but you know darn well he was playing in Chicago. He wasn't that. I'm sure that game's been circled for a long time, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a great night for him. But as Duncan doesn't say a lot. Flew in and saw Kenny saw him when he was coming into the lobby, and Kenny said to him, "Well, you looking forward to the game in Chicago?" He says, "No, you flew me in here. I'm looking forward to the game in Philly."
Well,
I'm intrigued by the coaching situation, and not yours specifically, although it qualifies. When a decision is made, and I know you didn't make this decision, but I don't even know if you had a role in the decision to replace your coach. But how much of it is influenced only by wins and losses rather than by structural things that coach is doing that you perceive are not working? And let me preface your answer by saying, you know, we all know we're in an era where things go wrong. First thing that happens is the coach goes. Do the players have too much power? Are they too influential? Do they not have enough character and backbone to pull themselves out of slumps and things? There's a whole bunch of questions buried in there, Nick, but take a shot at it. What do you think about the way we handle coaches these days?
Well, you know, when you look at any coaching situation, coaches are hired to win, you know, and that's their job in the National Hockey League. Everyone's expectations, depending on the type of talent, might be different in pro sports, but your job is to get better and win. The expectations in Edmonton are to make sure that we get into the playoffs. And when we went on the losing streak, you start to really watch. Well, Kenny's watching every game. You know how we play, how structured.
Sure.
But the way we started to lose at the end, especially the last couple of games, the structure had gone, the effort had gone, and that's why the changes had to be made. And now you can't blame all of that on the coach, but you're not getting rid of all your players in mid-season. And we feel that we have good players. The response has been really good. And now we'll find out where we are in the next month under a new coach and how the players respond to it. You know, do there have to be other changes in the lineup? We don't think we have to, but the next month and a half will probably make it much. Well,
your reality is that it will be difficult for you to do anything before the trade deadline, right? I mean, you don't have much cap space, and I mean, Kenny's already said he's not prepared to move a high round draft pick.
Yeah, Kenny's trapped, you know, with the cap. We can do some tinkering there, John, but to then start give away first round picks and you know, we got a lot of good prospects coming. You know, the team has, for Kenny to be making any move, the team has to be playing really well in the next 3 weeks. So next 3 weeks before the trade deadline is really going to show where we are.
Well, trades. Go ahead, John.
No, it doesn't help you that Calgary's like become the best team in hockey, because your fan base is looking down the road saying, "Oh my goodness gracious!" I mean, what have they won? 11 of 12 or something silly like that. I mean, they have become a juggernaut, and as well as I do, anybody in Edmonton compares themselves to Calgary before anything else. Correct?
Yeah, it's a huge rivalry. It's great playing them against Calgary, but that's where they look first, and they're ahead of us in the standings. And we still got our sights on them. We could play them a couple more times, and our goal is to be right there and make those games really important when we play Calgary, because those are intense games, and the whole province is sort of divides in half and puts on their Oilers and Flames jerseys.
I probably should know this, but what's the COVID situation? Do you have full buildings now?
Yeah, we have full buildings for our next game in Montreal. We've been 50% the month of February, but starting in March, we're full buildings, and really looking forward to that. I think that's going to help our team. We have a great fan base. I think the way that we're playing hard, and they're going to be there fully supporting our team.
Well, we wish you success over the next little while. The trade deadline, what, John, 3 weeks away?
21st of March.
Yeah, so about 3 weeks away. And as you said, if you're able to do something, it's probably going to be tweaking, and some of that may depend on how your team performs over the next 3 weeks. It's a stressful time for all of us as we enjoy sports as best we can, but with one eye on the international situation. And I know you've become involved now in that. So we thank you for your commitment to that. And we wish you and the Oilers success over the rest of the season. Thanks as always for taking time for us.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Thanks, John. You're good friends. Appreciate it.
Bob Nicholson. We'll come back and wrap it after these messages. Bob McCown, John Shannon back with you again. Our thanks to Bob Nicholson.
So you do understand what you've done today.
What they do.
If the Oilers win Tuesday night in Philadelphia,
yeah, Nicholson
will call you tomorrow. And then he'll call you Thursday, and then he'll call you Friday, and he will call you every game day for eternity, because that is
there's a pattern, an historic pattern that dates back more than a decade. Perhaps you should tell the story of what happened. There may be a few in the audience that have not heard it as yet.
Well, it dates back to our time in Vancouver at the Olympic Winter Games there, when you and I were encamped at Molson Hockey House on a daily basis. By the way, we had the best gig at the Vancouver Olympics, period,
without question.
And we made a conscious effort to have Mr. Nicholson on a few times, because Molson was a huge sponsor of Hockey Canada, and Bob was we
had a conscious effort to have him on once,
but
and then it became his decision more than ours. Well, but continue.
Well, so do you want to tell this story?
Nope. I just wanted to clarify that point.
So if we recall what happened to the hockey team, the men's hockey team in Vancouver, is it didn't play very well out of the gate, and had to play in that play-in round on the Tuesday night. And Nicholson came on the show that day on the Tuesday, and I believe they played the Germans that night, and they won, and they had to play the Russians the next night, and therefore, because Nicholson was on the show Tuesday and they won, Nicholson had to be on the show on Wednesday night in order to win. And of course, they won again. Now that means they played Friday night in the semifinal against, I believe, the Slovakians.
And that, if I recall, was our last show.
Yeah, it was. At any rate, if you recall, Friday traffic in Vancouver was brutal.
Brutal.
And Nicholson Nicholson
let us know he was coming on.
Yeah, he said, I'll be there at 4:30 or whatever.
Like I had become somehow the good luck charm.
That's right. So, but he got caught in traffic. And so he actually got out of the cab and sprinted the 4 blocks to Molson Hockey House on the Friday to get on the show. He shows up. Thank goodness it wasn't a TV simulcast that day. It was just radio. He looked worse for wear, sweating profusely.
Out of breath.
Yeah, and
Could barely talk.
Had to come on for 10 minutes, and then he said, okay, I got to go. But he needed the 10 minutes of good luck charm. So then you fly home on Saturday morning, correct?
Right.
And the gold medal game is at noon Pacific time, 3 Eastern on Sunday afternoon. And what happens at your house Sunday morning?
Ring. It's Nick.
Mr. Nicholson phones McCowan at home.
He phones me because he has to talk to me. He says,
good luck
charm. I had to talk to you.
Yeah. He gets into these crazes about superstition. That's the old athlete in him, I'm sure.
I laughed and we both laughed, but I poked fun at him to no end, to the point where he almost got mad at me. And if my recollection is correct, he did the same thing as he did when he came on the show in Vancouver. Gave me the short shift at the end. So I got to go. Goodbye.
Yeah.
And of course, Canada goes on and wins the gold medal game against the U.S.
Which, by the way, was, I think, yesterday was the anniversary.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I think the 28th of February.
You might be right. I know we were there during the month of February, but maybe the championship game.
But I stayed for the game. I stayed for the game. It was so he phoned me that morning too, but he woke me up because
I don't remember. He may have woken me up too.
Well, but it was a little later in the day in Toronto than it was in Vancouver. So.
Yeah. Well, I don't recall. Anyway, that subject has come up on a few occasions since then, although I confess I at least momentarily forgot about it.
The fascination about Nicholson's role in international hockey, he has been a major domo for a long time.
Yes, he has. In
the international game. And really, and you could hear it in his voice there, particularly when he started to talk about Vladislav Tretiak. He's viewed a lot of these people as friends and working cohorts in order to help the game. Not just the men's game, but for years and years and years, the Russians would not put any money into the women's hockey game, and they've started to do so with pressure from guys like Nicholson and Murray Costello. So from that perspective, it's I know it's hockey, and it's not as serious as what we're seeing going on, but you can see the concern and hear the concern in his voice about what, if anything, they can do to help the situation and at least raise the public profile of protestations against the Russians.
How long has he been with the Oilers?
Oh gosh, it's almost 7 or 8 years now.
I was going to say something in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And then
he was in, so he would have been in Sochi. So that's 2014. He was in that management group for the greatest team that ever played
with Hockey Canada.
So I think
sometime after 14.
Yeah. 2015 or 2016, he went to Edmonton. Yeah.
And how long was he with Hockey Canada?
Well, I think he moved to Hockey Canada about 1995. So I think he was there 20 years. Time. Well, and he was a huge driver of getting the NHLers to the Olympics and
all that stuff.
And also really creating that, he and the predecessor, Murray Costello, of really creating the program of excellence. When you talk about the World Junior Championships growing, and Canada's role in hockey growing, a lot of it is at the feet of Murray Costello and Bob Nicholson, who I think I'm not telling tales out of school. Bob would view Murray as his mentor for so many years in Hockey Canada.
Well, I just like to say that in my lifetime and in my experiences in and around Bob Nicholson, I can't think of anybody who is more influential. I'm not sure is the right word, but certainly respected throughout the hockey world.
Mm-hmm.
And has developed a position of influence and power internationally.
No question. And I mean, we've seen, we saw Canada win the Olympic gold medal in women's hockey. There has been no one in that period of time
that has championed women's hockey like
that has championed women's hockey.
No, you're right.
From an organizational perspective than Nicholson has. So Bob has had a very influential role to play in the game at so many levels, and all the way back to he started with Dave Andrews. By the way, he and Dave Andrews were together in Victoria with the BC Amateur Hockey Association. So it's a small Andrews, group of people.
For those people not aware, the former head of the president of the American Hockey League,
right,
who just left not
retired.
So very long ago.
Yeah, retired about 18 months ago.
Yeah. Well, our thanks to Nick. He's always welcome on this program, as you know, John, and will continue to be. And it certainly was not my intent to be critical of anything that the IIHF or anybody else has done with regard to sport, but merely to question what we really think the influence ultimately will be. And only time will tell. And perhaps even time won't give us those answers. We got to go. Time is our enemy, and we will be back with something for you tomorrow. We thank you for watching or listening. For John Shannon, Bob McCown. Goodbye, everybody.